Hi there, and welcome to my channel. I've come on today because as we're all on lockdown at home, I thought I'd catch up on some of my cards, and I've been doing these men's cards with the shirt folds, and I thought I'd come on and give a tutorial about how to make the shirts, including how to make the waistcoat. If anyone wants a full tutorial on how I made these cards, let me know and I'll come and do that later on in the week. But I'll have a chat about where I got the papers and things from this. And but anyway, we'll get on with the shirt folds. So as you know, I've been sorting out my room and I've come across loads and loads of these shirt blocks that I've had great fun with rediscovering the shirt fold. So I thought I'd show you the different techniques and how you can do them. Okay, so I'm going to use 12 by 12 paper just because it's going to be easier for you to follow. You'll be able to see without my hands getting in the way. What I start off with, regardless of what size I'm folding, if I'm not using the blocks, if I'm using, say a regular sheet of paper, is I always start with a square and cut it in half. And that way it doesn't really matter on your measurements as long as you started with a square and then you've cut in half. So this is a 12 by 6 piece. If you had a 6 by 6, then you would have half a sheet, which would be 6 inches by 3 inches, and the same with an 8 by 8, that would be 8 by 4 inches. So let's start off with the one style of shirt fold. So as you can see, I've already started this video a couple of times, got disturbed, but hey ho. Right, okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to turn, so this is what I want on the outside, so I'm going to start on the inside. So what I'm going to do is bring the edges over and I'm going to fold it in half, lining up those edges and then creasing down. Now, we're not going to use this as a fold, we're using this to measure everything else by, so we need to make sure that that is absolutely in the middle. So once you've got your middle fold, you're then going to bring the sides in to the middle. So bring over that side, bring it to the middle and crease down. And now we're starting to form our shirt. Turn it round and do exactly the same with the other side. Bring that over and bring it up. Try not to overlap your papers because that can cause you problems later on with some of the folds that we're going to do. This one is the easiest one, and this one doesn't actually require you to use glue. So it is an easier one to do if you're doing it for the first time practicing, or if you want a longer looking shirt. So this is the one we're doing. It's got a longer body on it, whereas the other one is a square. So depending on what look you want to go for, depends on what fold you want to use. So now you've got to make some decisions. So if you've got directional paper, this is the top. So when this is done, this is going to be the front of the shirt. So bear that in mind. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our finger roughly about just under a third of the way down. It will depend on how you want your sleeves. It doesn't really matter. You can have it up here and then you'll get a different front on yours. Let me just show you. So if you go further down, you get more of a squared off one, and then you get a shallower one. Okay, it all depends on what you're looking for. So I like to go roughly about a third of the way down. I'm going to put my finger there, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the edge out. And what I'm aiming to do is to crease from where my finger is to this corner here. I want my crease to run all the way along there. So I'm going to bring it over, crease it down, get my bum folder, crease that down. I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm not going to move my finger. I'm going to do exactly the same on this side. And that way we get an equal shirt sleeve front. These flaps are going to be your shirt sleeves. Okay, once we've done that, we're going to flip it over and we're going to work on this end now. So I'm going to fold this end down, thinking about the size of my paper. This now is going to be your shirt collar. So depending on how deep you want your collar to be, depends on how much you fold down. So if you want a nice deep collar, you're going to go a bit further down. If you want a thin collar, you're going to be further up. So I'm going to go there, which is roughly just under 1 centimetre. And I'm going to flip it back over, and I'm going to keep my paper on that side. Okay, so we now have a crease here. What we're now going to do is bring this point across to this centre line here, because we're forming our collar. So with the bigger piece of paper, sometimes it's easier if you just roll it a little bit with your bone folder or scissors or whatever you've got to hand. It just makes it easier for folding. It's not really necessary with the smaller sheets. So you're going to bring this point over roughly, because we want a nice collar size. I'm going to bring it to about there, which is about 1 centimetre and 1/4. And I'm going to crease that. And I'm going to do exactly the same with this one. I'm going to bring that point to match this point over like that. I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm going to crease it down, use my bone folder to hold it in place. Okay. And then I'm going to bring this edge with the sleeves, I'm going to bring that up, and I'm going to tuck it under those two collars. Can you see? Bring it a little bit closer, you might see even better. Bring that, I'm going to tuck it under like that. And I'm going to line up this centre crease with that centre crease in the middle there. So it's nice and even across. I'm going to hold my finger there, like that, so it's all held in place, and then I'm going to use my bone folder to crease it. And there we have our first shirt. One of the things you can do if you don't like your shirt sleeves like that is you can open it back up, and using your scissors you can clip in. So parallel to this line here, clip in like that and fold that back in. Let's go all the way up, fold that back in, and then come over this side and do exactly the same this side. Try and keep it as even as possible and bring that piece back in. And then when you bring that up like that, you've got a different look with your sleeves. Okay, something to think about, and you can do that on any of these folds. Okay, so that's our first one. If you wanted to use these, now I've used a few of these as not safety pins, what are they? Paper clips. What you can do with this, you can't fit it down the back, so you can go in there and push it all the way down inside your shirt. You will still see the paper clip there. Or if you want to use it for any of your other projects, so the big ones I'm making today, I'm going to keep those and use them as a banner for a birthday. Okay, so I'll pop that there. So that's the first one. So to do the squared body, so that was this one. I'm now going to show you how to do this one. It's slightly similar, but yeah, there are some differences, and you'll see as we go through. So we start off exactly the same. We're going to bring that across and create our centre line so that we know exactly where all our other creases need to go. This gives us something, a basis for everything else. I'm going to open it out. Now, instead of folding this into the middle, I'm now going to fold the bottom up around about a third of the way. But I'm only going to do it by eye. I'm not going to be too fussed with whether it is a full third of the way up or not. Okay, and then I'm going to crease that, and now I'm going to start folding into the middle. So bringing that side in. What can happen is, because you are creasing over two pieces, the bottom piece can stick out ever so slightly, but don't let that worry you. Try and be as neat and tidy as you can. It's not quite so evident with the little ones as it is with the big ones. If you really do feel it bothers you, you can always, once you've done this, go back in and trim that off. So as you see, as that's hanging over a little bit because I folded it, you could trim that off, but I'm not going to let that worry me. Okay, when you get to that point, we do exactly the same as we did before. I'm going to bring these out to form the sleeves in exactly the same way. These are going to be a little bit narrower, I think. So crease them down, use your bowl folder to hold them down. Okay, now we're going to now bring the creased edge, the double edge up, and we're going to take it over the top. So we're going to perhaps do it that way. Bring it up, and then we're going to leave a collar width. This is now going to be our collar at the top. So we want to leave a width that we're comfortable with. We're happy to be the collar. So as you can see, I've brought that piece up to there. Okay, so my collar is going to be about that width. Okay, now I'm going to take some scissors and I'm going to cut along that line using that line as my guide. I'm going to cut the piece behind just over halfway between this edge and that middle point there. I'm not going to go all the way, I'm going to go about halfway. I'm going to there. I'm going to flip it over and do exactly the same on this side, using this piece as my guide. So just about halfway. Now with this one you will need some glue. Get my glue ready. Let's take the lid off. Actually, if I lie it down, it gets the glue halfway, doesn't it? Now then, to help me, I'm going to use my bone folder because it's a big sheet. If I was working on the 6x6, I wouldn't curl it, but I'm going to just curl those collar pieces to the front just to help me guide them into place. Okay, now I'm going to take these 2 points and I'm going to bring them into the middle to form the collar. So I'm going to start with this one. So this is the point I want in the middle. So I'm creating now that collar shape. Hope you can see that. So we now have a collar shape going on. Okay, I'm going to hold that down. I'm going to bring this corner over and do exactly the same, but I want this point to meet this point. If I pop that under there, you might see it better. So I'm going to bring this point over to meet that point there. Okay. I'm going to crease it down. You bring that in, you might be able to see that. So that's what I've done. Okay. So now with this one, you will need to glue it because the collar won't hold it in the same way as this one did. With this one, the collar, paper clip's gone in the back there. The collar will hold that, so you don't need to glue it. You can if you want to, but you don't need to. And if you do want to glue this one, just a little bit on there and maybe a little bit under the collar, and that's more than enough to hold it permanently in place. But with this one, you definitely do need to use some glue. So I'm going to open it up again and I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the back of here. Just a little bit, I'm not too fussed where it goes. And then I'm going to put a tiny bit of glue on that leading edge on the inside. Just a little bit, enough to hold it. There we go, and a little bit on this one as well, and that should now hold it. Pop that back down and that one back down like that. I'm just going to hold it like that. With this one, again, if you wanted to turn it into a paper clip, the way to do that is to push your paper clip between the fold in the back of the collar there. So can you see that? So that's the collar at the front, and you can push it down behind there and bring that to the back, and that way, unless you want to, you can't now see the paper clip at the front. Okay, so I might just use this paper clip to hold that collar down. This isn't very sticky glue. Right, so I'm going to give that a minute. Okay, and the next one I want to show you is the waistcoat and shirt. And for this, you still only need one sheet of paper. Again, this is my half of a 12 by 12, so this is 12 by 6. So I'm going to fold this in half and do exactly the same as I did with the last one, folding it in half to create that centre line from everything else. And it's more important with the waistcoat that you get the centre line correct. I'm going to open it up, and again I'm going to turn it round, and I'm going to bring this end up about 1/3 of the way. If I'm in any doubt, I'm going to go slightly less than 1/3, but I'm just doing it by eye. Yeah, that's slightly more than 1/3. I'm going to bring that down slightly more and do that. Okay, and exactly the same again. I'm going to now bring this edge across to the middle. Oops. Like that, and fold that down. It is a little bit fiddly and can be even more fiddly with the smaller sheets, but it's worth it because these come out looking so good. I really do like how the waistcoats have worked out. Oops. It's worth taking a bit of time with this one, with the waistcoat one especially, because this will be the front of your waistcoat and shirt. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fold this in half. I'm going to bring the single side up at the back of the other piece, so that I've now got the opening on the outside both sides. So I've got the opening there and there. Okay, so crease that down really, really hard. Okay, so we're going to flip. We don't want to work on this side, we want to work on this side, which has got the double paper. Okay, so using this, we're now going to form the collars of our waistcoat, and we do this in the same way as we do the sleeves, just not quite so far. So I'm going to put my finger about 2/3 of the way down, and I'm going to bring this point, this open point, that's the crease. We're not working that end, we're working this end. I'm going to bring it over, but rather than bring it as we would with the shirt sleeves, which is all the way out, I want to bring this point and line it up with that edge. So very carefully try and line it up like that, and then crease that down, and then do exactly the same this side. So this point, the double-sided, I'm going to bring that over, so the double pages, over to the edge of that crease. So it can be a little bit fiddly because the paper, because it's doubled over, it will fight you. Oh, that's not worked at all, has it? Let's try that again. Put that to the edge, and then I'm going to crease down. That's not working. Hold on. Maybe if I curl the paper a little bit. It's because it's the big sheet. It's so easy with the smaller. It's fiddly, but it's much, much easier with the smaller sheet. So take that there, bring that up to there. Okay, there we go. I knew I'd get there in the end. Now I'm not going to worry that it's ever so slightly higher than that. I think it just adds character, but if it bothers you, go back in and try and retrain your paper. Okay, so we're at that stage now. We've got the fold at the bottom and we've got the waistcoat collar at the top. Now I'm going to bring my scissors and I'm going to snip. I'm going to make a V here. So using this crease as a guide, I'm going to cut from the edge in a V on both sides. So deciding how deep I want, I'm coming about 2/3 of the way along from there to the middle, and I'm going to now cut into the waistcoat until I hit the middle. I'm going to flip that over so that I get a put some white underneath, you want to say, so that I can do a mirror image on this side, and I'm going to follow that line up to the middle and I'm going to cut that away. I'm making a right pig's ear of this, aren't I? This is easy, I promise you. Right, okay, so I've done that. So now I've got my collar here and I've got this V going on here. Now what I want to do next is I want to go from this point to slightly above that V. So I'm going to bring it up to about here, but I'm going to do it in a curve, in almost a circular move on both sides. Okay, so I'm going to start at that corner and bring it up in a curve. Now I can hear you all going, but that's going to cut the bottom off. Well, that's exactly what I want to happen. I'm going to flip it over because I know when I cut my curve, if I try and cut it that way, I'm going to get a different angle. So I'm going to flip it over and try and do the same. So looking at that, I'm aiming for about there. So I'm thinking straight across, it's about there. So I'm going to do exactly the same. Bring it round. There we go. Okay. That's slightly lower than the other side, so I'm just going to back in and bring it up ever so slightly. Okay, that's better. I'm happier with that. Okay, push all that away. Now, what happens is you end up with two pieces, but that's exactly what we wanted. Don't worry about it. Now then, I'm going to pop that to one side because that's our waistcoat. We're now going to make our shirt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this out and I'm going to refold it back the other way. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go slightly over. So I'm going to bring my shirt in slightly further than that middle line. So whereas it was there before, I'm bringing it over ever so slightly on the one side. It's only millimetres. It's only a very, very tiny 1/8 of an inch, 1/16, if that. Okay. Don't worry that this doesn't line up because you're not going to see that. I'm not going to do the same this side because I'm going to allow that to overlap ever so slightly because this is our shirt. I'm going to reinforce those creases and retrain the paper. Okay, so now we've got that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop it back into the waistcoat, because I'm going to now use this as a guide. So making sure that it fits, I want to make sure that fits well, bring that over, and I'm now going to use my scissors. Now, as you can see, rather than push it flush where it started, I've brought it up slightly because what I want is a nice collar size. I'm going to have it ever so slightly deeper than that. And I'm going to do exactly the same as we did on this when we formed this collar, but I'm going to use this, the waistcoat, as my guide this time. So I'm going to bring my scissors in and I'm going to cut using the waistcoat as my guide. I'm now going to cut along just over halfway, like that. I'm going to flip it over because it's just a lot easier, and I'm going to do exactly the same on that, using the waistcoat as my guide. I'm going to open it up and take it out. I'm now going to bring these corners to this fold in the middle to form the collar. And this is much easier because this is only 2 sheets of paper thick, whereas when we did the shirt it was 4 sheets of paper thick. And now we have created a shirt which goes inside our waistcoat, like that. Now, to finish off, what we're going to do is I'm going to glue down inside here just to hold it down a little bit. So don't need much, just a line of glue across the middle's enough to hold it. And I'm going to do the same as we did on the other shirt, bit of glue on each corner, bring that over and hold that down. I'm going to use one of my safety pins. Why can I never remember? These are paper clips. I don't know why I can't remember that. As soon as you switch the camera on, my brain goes to fog. Right, so I'm just going to hold that like that while it dries, and I'm going to carry on working with the waistcoat. So what I want to do is to make this collar look a bit more like a waistcoat collar. So to do that, I'm going to bring my scissors in, and parallel with the top, I'm going to cut, I'm just going to snip in like that, and then snip a corner off like that. So if I bring the paper in, you can see what I've done. Just snipped off that corner like that. I'm going to do exactly the same on the other side, try and line it up, but I'm not overly fussed if it's not 100%. And take that out. So now we have that side and that side. Okay, I'm going to bring my glue back in. I'm going to run a bead of glue across there, and I'm going to pop my shirt in, lining up, bring in that white paper again so you can see, lining up the top of the shirt with the top of the waistcoat, and fold that in. I should glue the front as well, just a little bit, don't need lots, especially if you're working on the smaller sheets of paper. Bring that in. Now I also want to pin this back a little bit, so a tiny bit of glue on the back of these should hold them down. Okay, and if you want to, you can get your pen and you can do buttons on the front as well if you want to. Just going to put a few little ones down like that. And that is how you do waistcoat. So there's waistcoat, there's a box shirt, and then there's the long shirt. So, and that is how I created the shirts on the front of my card. Very simple. So this one is that shirt, and this is obviously the waistcoat, and the same on both of them. And what I've done with these is, when I was at car boots, where else, I picked up some newspaper. This is vintage newspaper from 1961, I think it was, which had been chopped up, but it has got some of the most amazing I think it was an auto parts or something. So it's selling cars and bits to do with cars, and that's what I've done. Is I've cut out the bits, the selling pages on there, and I've cut out bits of the adverts, and then glued them onto a piece. Used a 6x6 as my base. Some fabulous 6x6s in here, aren't they? Brilliant. Some lovely, look at those. Some lovely pages in here. I think this was the Works or something, so probably only £1. So I'll use that as my base on the front of the 6x6 card, and then I've used some of the advertising underneath. Oops, let's move those out of the way. Underneath, and then I've put a couple of strips of thin paper from the 6x6 when I cut it down, just to give a little bit more interest to the page. And then these two, what I've put underneath the shirts, those are advertisements. And then I've used my old faithful stamp for the happy birthday. So I think they turned out really good. I'm really pleased with how well they've done. So yeah, so if you want me to do a tutorial, I will. If not, I won't bother. But I really like doing these, and I really enjoyed creating them. So I might do some more. I might do some of the football ones next, maybe. Those would be interesting. Okay, hope you enjoyed that, and please do have a go. I'm sure you've probably already done some, but I know a few people had said that they hadn't seen the waistcoat one before, so I thought it'd be interesting to do that. Okay then, folks, so look after yourself, especially during this very trying times, and I hope to see you in a few days' time. Take care. Bye for now.